Welcome to the Divorce Podcast, where we explore all aspects of ending relationships, separation, and parenting apart. If your marriage or partnership has ended, or you have friends and family who are separating, this podcast is for you. I'm Kate Daly, a relationship counsellor, divorce specialist, and co-founder of Amicable, the online legal service for separating couples. In each episode, we look at relationships and separation from different angles, including the emotional, legal, and social. I'm joined by experts and special guests who share their own unique stories, experience, and tips with the goal of helping people end relationships in a kinder and better way. Are you and your ex co-parenting? I'm joined by Dr. Sarah Foley, a lecturer in developmental psychology at the University of Edinburgh. We explore her upcoming research on children's relationships with their parents in different post-separation child arrangements. Sarah talks about why this research is so important and, crucially, how you can get involved. If you loved this episode, then please subscribe and rate us on your preferred listening platform. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
It's lovely to meet you and lovely to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, in this shorter episode of the podcast, we're going to focus on highlighting this really important research that you're doing and giving people an opportunity to also take part, which is super exciting. So do you want to start by just giving us a little bit of background about what the survey or what your research rather is looking at?
Yeah, great. Thank you. So the Parenting After Divorce or Separation study is trying really to explore children's experiences and children's sort of social and emotional adjustment in different types of post-separation child arrangements, with a particular focus on families who have come to an arrangement outside of the court, and particularly families with children aged 4 to 8 years old. So both of those groups, those people who've gone outside of court and younger children have typically been absent in the research literature that we do have available to draw on. And I think that just means the support that we can give parents and children along these separation journeys and this transition isn't as sort of evidence informed as I guess we would like.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because when you describe it, most people make their arrangements outside of court. You know, I know a lot of media attention gets focused on arrangements made through the court and judges saying that you can and can't do this with your own children and all that kind of stuff. But actually, most people make arrangements outside of the court. And a lot of people now separate with quite young children. And therefore, it seems that that's probably the majority of people, and certainly where a lot of the kind of more difficult sort of negotiations come, because when you've got young children, people are a bit more sort of conscious about how much time they spend with each child and that kind of thing. Whereas when the children get older, they're much more able to make some of those choices themselves under their parents' supervision, but they have much more of a say. So these young kids who don't necessarily have the words or the voice to say what they want, and kids who aren't subject to a court order, it feels like it's really surprising to hear you say that that's an underserved research community, when to me it feels like the majority. So fantastic that we're getting some information out there as well.
I hope so, and I agree. So it's about 90% of families who don't go to court. So it's just a huge population, and it's such a normal event that families go through in terms of separation. Doesn't mean it's not full with different emotions, but it's certainly something that happens to a lot of people. So therefore, I think it's really important that we understand that, and that's part of why I'm doing the research.
And the other thing you mentioned was the fact that there are lots of common patterns of how children spend time with each of their parents. But the point I think you made, which was also very interesting, was that there's not a lot of evidence base. So essentially what you're trying to look for is there or are there patterns that seem to work better than others? Because I guess as a parent, that's the thing you want to know most of all. What do my kids need? And I might have a view and my ex might have a very different view. So how do we arbitrate in that situation? Is there a way of looking at this that says, well, actually what kids need is this kind of pattern? So is that essentially what you're trying to provide for people who are divorced and separated?
That's certainly one thing that I really hope that this research will sort of shine a light on, really trying to understand the differences between families who are doing some sort of co-parenting or shared arrangement, and whether or not these differences matter for children's relationships with their parents, whether they matter for children's experiences of their daily lives, their social lives, their school lives, their relationships that they enjoy with their families, and also in terms of their social and emotional skills and their academic adjustment as well. So really trying to, like you say, understand the differences in both the structure of different arrangements and whether these matter, or is it other things that might be going on? Is it the more of the psychological processes and the things that are going on within a family that are contributing to the differences that we see in terms of the different outcomes that I'm exploring. And hopefully that will help give people a bit more of an informed, choice around that. Because it might be that it doesn't matter, whether you do 2, 2, 3 or an alternating week, or maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's about children's, the number of different transitions or the flexibility of the arrangement, the satisfaction of the arrangement. So we're exploring lots of different aspects of what's going on. And also really interested in terms of, you talked about these being young children, the extent to which children have been involved in the discussions and around the decision making around the different child arrangements. These are children aged 4 to 8, but their parents might have separated when they were younger or between that period. And I'm just really interested to see from parents' point of view whether or not they included children in those discussions. I'm not saying that they definitely should, but I think it's, just to get a sense of what people are actually doing.
Well, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because when we look at things like, there's a branch of mediation called child inclusive mediation, and the guidelines there is that kids need to be, I think it's kind of Gillett competent, so around the age of about 10 before they can be included. And it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's kind of trying to understand that but younger than that, then it's quite hard for children to be included. But what you're saying is, well, that might be, but actually in real life, there might be something else that's going on, which is kids of a lot younger are being included in conversations and discussions about it. And it'll be very super interesting to find out if they are, and the impact, as you say, that that's having on how arrangements are shaped. And then, like you say, the satisfaction from those arrangements as well. Because we all know that people sort of tend to enjoy things a bit more when they've been involved in the construction of them. So it's how young can you go and how inclusive can you be, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it will be really interesting. And I guess they've not mentioned that the study is taking place in Scotland and in England. And it's all online, so people can take place wherever they are around the country. But I think what's been interesting in moving up to Scotland is the discussions around the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child. And Article 12 is sort of this idea of respecting the views of the child. And a child isn't just from 10 plus, is it? So I'm, again, like you said, be interesting to see, well, what's happening, what are parents actually doing in practice. And I guess part of the project as well will be following up with some of the families to talk to some children to really think about all their experiences. So maybe they've not been involved in the discussions, but they certainly experience their daily life and have thoughts and feelings and emotions about what's going on day to day. So hopefully that will sort of illuminate some of the children's voices in these different types of arrangements.
So, Sarah, it sounds like a fascinating project. Can you tell us the type of people you're looking to interview and get in touch with for the purposes of the research?
Yes, great. Thank you. So I'm hoping to speak with parents who have got a child who's between age 4 to 8 years old. Parents who live in Scotland or in England are eligible to take part. And crucially, the parents need to have regular contact with the child as well. So that can look different for different families. But there's some sort of regularity of contact there. And again, crucially, as we've said before, we're looking for parents who have come to a childcare arrangement outside of the court. So they might have been still involved, solicitors or mediators, but the final child arrangement is something that is not a court order. And so if you think that's you, then please get in touch, and then hopefully we can share your experiences and take part in the project.
But they don't have to be married. They could have been living together, but as long as they've got a child together. So there's no pre-requirement to be married. It's all different types of relationship.
Absolutely. All different types of relationships. And I think that's what's really important, is that a lot of previous research has just been with parents who are divorced. And actually, 51% of children are now born outside of marriage. And so I think it's really important that we represent children who are from cohabiting parents or previously cohabiting parents.
So they don't have to be heterosexual relationships. They can be all kinds of different relationships.
Absolutely. We just families, as family, we want to try and represent family life as it is. And I know, we know that people, children have same-sex parents. Some people have more than two parents involved in parenting as well. So, very much interested in the experiences of of capturing the voices of lots of different parents.
Okay. And if people are sitting here thinking, well, yeah, actually, that's me, and I would like to be involved, and presumably they get the opportunity to hear from you and find out the research findings and all the rest of it, maybe quicker than everybody else. So if there are people who are interested, how do they get involved in this study, and what kind of time commitment are you looking for from them?
Yeah. So hopefully in the show notes, we'll put a link for people to do an expression of interest. But otherwise, you could just look up me on Sarah Foley. I'm at the University of Edinburgh. So if you give me a Google, it'll come up there. And it's the Parenting After Divorce or Separation Study. And you can learn a little bit more about the project there. And also, again, you can sign up for a bit more information. You're absolutely at that point not committing to taking part. Because you asked about sort of the time commitment and what it involves. So we're, really appreciating people sort of generously giving their time in terms of taking part in an interview. So the interview is around an hour and a half. That really depends how chatty people are. I've really found that people really enjoy talking about this. It's something that people feel quite passionately that there's not enough evidence there. So people have really, so far, I'm glad to say, enjoyed taking part. And the interview is exploring people's journeys, their separation journeys, how they got to this child arrangement that they've got now. Thinking also about the experiences of support, whether or not they were in touch with sort of different legal professionals, even if they didn't finally go to court, why they decided to do that. Again, interested in the children's involvement. And also, I'm a family psychologist. I'm really interested in the parent-child relationship too. So sort of exploring those things. And I should say, that people, if they don't want to answer a certain thing, that's fine. They just sort of tell me, I run through that at the start. Just because they've sort of consented to take part doesn't mean they have to do everything. And then I invite parents to do a short survey, sort of questionnaires, really to tap into a few different things about their well-being, about their co-parenting relationships as well. And then finally, if they're happy to consent, to involve the children. So the children have got some fun activities to do as well. And again, this is all online. So that's in a separate session where we do some fun picture games, where we're talking about experiences at school, their experiences of their friends. We do some stories around some rabbits where the children are helping me finish these stories. And then at the end, we've got a really fun activity for parents to do with the children, which is an online Etch-a-Sketch game. And they have to work together to draw a picture. I think we're seeing that the children are the experts there in terms of using the laptop and things like that as well. So everything's at family friendly time. So I'm working evenings and weekends just to make sure that this is an accessible thing for people to do. So if people can set aside a couple of hours to take part, then we would really appreciate it. And then, as you said, they will get, if they want to, we're giving people the opportunity to sign up to get the results of the study, and be doing parent newsletters, but also child friendly ones as well if they want to share them. But then we'll be doing other workshops with people like yourselves, hopefully to sort of spread the word of what we found and really make sure that the time and effort people have put into sharing their experiences with me really goes on to help sort of support parents and children at different points across this sort of the transition that they're going through.
I'm super excited because it would be fantastic. I mean, Amicable offers a Separating with Children service, and you can buy a 90-minute session with us. And there's full details on our website. We also have our co-parenting app as well to help co-parenting run more smoothly. But to have some real evidence, more evidence-based details to be able to feed into the advice and the help that we give people would be fantastic. So I'm all ears for this. I think this is a fantastic project. Just when you were talking, if an adult wants to be involved, the parent wants to be involved, but they don't want their children involved, is that okay? Or is that not really what you're looking for? Just talk a little bit about that.
That's absolutely fine. So people, as I said, you can consent to different parts of the process. So if you just want, we've had some parents, for whatever reason, they've just wanted to do the interview and the questionnaire, and that's absolutely fine. That's all they have to do. Others, after taking part in the interview and then learning a bit more about things, say, you know what, it's absolutely fine for you. We'd, be really happy for you to talk to the little one about things. And just to really emphasize during that session with the children as well, because it's online, I won't at that point be talking to them about their families, about the experience of separation or divorce. We'll only be doing that in a follow-up study where we're going to be visiting some families in the home and sort of talking to children then about their experiences. So that's at a later stage. So at this point in time, the children are invited to take part in a study that's exploring sort of their daily lives and experiences.
It sounds amazing. I think it's such a brilliant study. What motivated you to look into this?
Well, so I've been involved in sort of family psychology, working with mothers, fathers, children, and lots of different ages. And I've always really been interested in that co-parenting relationship. So I think maybe when you're talking about co-parenting, you're thinking about two people working together after separation or divorce, but co-parenting exists before that. Co-parenting exists in lots of different ways. And my research so far has explored different types of co-parenting relationships, looking at the transition to parenthood and the influences that new parents have on one another. But also, I finished a project recently with colleagues at the Centre for Family Research in Cambridge, where we looked at elective co-parenting. And that's when two people begin their journey to parenthood outside of a relationship, and they, can have the child and plan to raise the child outside of that. And in sort of looking at that project, naturally looked for, literature and research around sort of co-parenting after divorce and separation. And that's where I saw this real gap and thought, if I'm seeing that from this point of view, then, what else is there? And I guess the pilot project that I did for this, talking to lots of different parents, children, solicitors, mediators, coaches, everyone was just sort of saying that there seemed to be this gap. And I guess there were some other things going on at the time that made it really pressing. So we had the new no-fault divorce going through. We had COVID, where their relationships were, I guess, conflict was exacerbated in there. We've got the cost of living crisis. So I guess it's sort of hopefully it's a timely project, and sort of all those, lots of different influences have led to where we are now. And lots of discussion.
Well, I imagine with COVID as well, there were two parents at home for a lot of the time, where that probably isn't the case now or lots of times. And I imagine it's had a big impact on how people work and how much work they do outside of the home versus inside of the home and everything else. I think the pandemic was probably a proper old watershed moment, wasn't it, for looking at how we parent children as a society as a whole. So I think it's definitely needed. I'm very, very excited to see what results you come up. And thank you very much for coming on and talking about the research. So as Sarah says, there'll be full details in the show notes. If you're interested, I would highly recommend you have a good look at the information Sarah puts out there. And please, if you can, volunteer to be part of this. It's always so important that you get real life experience so that we can inform experts and people who give opinions and who help you get to these arrangements. So the more we understand, the better the advice we can give. So thank you, Sarah. It's been absolutely fascinating listening to the project and hearing all about it. And thank you very much for coming on and talking to us about it today.
No, thank you very much. And like I say, I look forward to hopefully sharing the results with you next year.
That's brilliant. All Sarah's details will be in the show notes. Finally, we'd love to know how we can help more. So please share your questions on divorce, separation and co-parenting with us at hello@amicable.co.uk. You never know, they might be the topic of the next episode. Thank you for listening.